I want to thank our partners who have made this call possible. The Catawba County Economic Development Corporation and Nathan Hewitt, who is assisting with the technical aspects of the call, the SBTDC, the Small Business Center at CBCC, and we have about 18 chambers and economic development corporations from the 5th and 10th districts who have joined us today to make this call possible, and hopefully those names are appearing on the screen. So again, thank you. I also want to thank our speakers that have taken time out of their schedules to be here, and I know that they're super busy. So first, I want to recognize Congressman Patrick Mchenry of representing the North Carolina's 10th district, and he also serves as the ranking member of the Financial Services, the House Committee on Financial Services. So, Patrick, if you're on the line, I'd love to turn it over to you for opening remarks.
Lindsay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yes, sir.
And thank you all for being on the call. It's an honor to be with Virginia Foxx, who is the lead Republican on the and former chair of the Education and Workforce Committee in the House of Representatives, and I'm the lead Republican on the House Financial Services Committee. The piece of the bill that I helped negotiate, the CARES Act that I helped negotiate, deals with the monies that go to the Treasury through the Exchange Stabilization Fund, the bank regulatory and credit union regulatory relief that is in the bill, and then as it relates to the implementation of the Small Business Administration loan and grant program. We had new guidance last night for all the SBA lenders and all federally regulated credit unions and banks. That guidance details how the Small Business Administration loan program will work. There are a lot of questions on this, of course, but existing SBA lenders, as of midnight last night, were able to begin processing loans. And as of this morning, we had 1,125 loans processed for a total dollar volume of $400 million. And that was in the first 9 hours of the program. And so for small businesses, talk to your existing banking relationship. They can detail the process here. There's a new loan form that came out last night as well with the new guidance. This clearly outlines the responsibilities of the banks, responsibilities of the small business person, and the rules about eligibility for the loan forgiveness, the forgiveness portion or the grant portion for payroll that is within this provision. A lot of questions about this. Please call my office if you have any questions related to this banking related piece or the SBA related piece, and we will do our utmost to be responsive to you on answering these questions. Lindsay, thanks so much for hosting the call. I know we've got great expertise, both with Virginia Foxx with the education issues within the CARES Act and with the SBA staff that we have on the call as well. So happy to answer any questions as they may arise. Please give me a call in my office or email me. I would love to help in any way we possibly can. So thanks so much, Lindsay.
Thank you, Representative Mchenry. And it is also my pleasure and privilege to introduce Representative or Congresswoman Virginia Foxx. Representative Foxx, thank you so much for taking your time as well. She represents the North Carolina's 5th district, and as Representative Mchenry stated, she serves as the Republican leader on the House Committee on Education and Labor. So I also know Representative Foxx would like to say a couple of remarks. So thanks for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you. Representative Foxx might have to unmute your line. Ms. Foxx, I'm if you can unmute your line, and I'll let you know if we can hear you.
My line is unmuted.
There you are. There you are. I can hear you now. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it was unmuted. I don't know what happened. I muted it and unmuted it. So anyway, Patrick and I both have another call we need to be on. It started at 11. I think he probably has gotten off because he's one of the main speakers on that call too. But I want to reiterate what he said. Call our offices for specific questions, and you have two experts on the line who are going to be speaking after we do, and they are terrific on answering questions. But the number in my Clemens office is 336-778-0211. Andrew Krefsky is there, and he is answering calls, and or the calls are being forwarded to him if he's at home working. And we are working with small businesses every minute of every day, helping them. I think the school systems have pretty well down pat what was done in the CARES Act related to education. But if the schools have any questions, we're happy to answer their questions. Most of our questions are coming from small businesses. My own daughter has a small business and is caught up in all of this. So I'm hearing firsthand the challenges that are here. And I just want to say, we're doing everything that we can. I do hope I will do what the president does every time, and the vice president at the press conferences. Please follow the guidelines. We're blessed, I think, in North Carolina, in our part of North Carolina in particular, with very few cases. And so I'm hoping that will continue to be the situation. So I won't go into any details. Patrick's already, I think, covered what most of your members are concerned about. And so I would just urge people to continue to go to our websites, go to the websites of your chamber and the U.S. Chamber and other organizations that have lots of material out there. But I thank you, Lindsay. All the chambers are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you. Representative Foxx, I know you have a busy schedule, and I really appreciate you taking the time, and apologize for the technical sound issues. It's certainly a representative of the disruption that we're all experiencing. So thank you for that. Thank you also for being a champion for business. Both you and Mchenry are always a strong voice for business, and we appreciate that on behalf of all of our chambers that are represented on this call. All right. Well, now we are lucky to be joined with two policy experts that are going to help dissect this bill as it pertains to our business partners. On the call, we have Joe Hart. Joe is the policy director for the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Small Business, and then Rob Yavor. Rob is a senior professional staff with ranking member Steve Shabbat with the U.S. Committee on Small Business, or U.S. House Committee on Small Business. So both of them are here. I just want to remind you, if you have a question, to put them in the chat box, as they will be giving some information first, and then we'll have some time at the end to answer your questions. So Nathan Hurett with the Catawba County Economic Development Corporation will be facilitating that Q&A. So just as a reminder, if you do have a question, go ahead and put that in the chat box, and we'll get to them after their comments. So I would like to introduce Joe Hart. Joe, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks again for taking the time.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for hosting the call, Lindsay. This has been a great way to get as much of this information out to the folks who need it. Both Rob and I have done about 10 or 15 of these so far, with about 10 or 15 more to go. But I want to keep my remarks short, because I know that most people have very specific and granular questions about how this stuff is going to work. Basically, in the CARES Act, we made changes to two programs. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or determined by the SBA. This is the type of loan. This is a direct loan from the SBA, so you would not be going to your local lender for these. You would be going to the SBA's website. And I say that knowing full well that a lot of you are very frustrated with the SBA's website. It keeps crashing. They are doing the best they can. It's a tough time, and they are doing the best they can. But these EIDL loans are you pay them back over 30 years. Basically, you can use them for anything you want, payroll, things along those lines. The change that we made for this particular program is that if you apply for an EIDL loan, you are eligible for a $10,000 grant that the SBA says they can get to you within 72 hours. And the kicker with that is even if the SBA declines your EIDL loan, you get to keep that $10,000, and it's forgiven. So that was the one significant change we made to the EIDLs. The other program, this is the big one. This is the Paycheck Protection Program.
Joe.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're having a little bit of static whenever you're speaking. It comes and goes. So I don't know if you can get in a place where you have the best reception.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, but thank you. Very important information. I want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Sure. I moved closer to the window here.
That sounds great.
Okay. The Paycheck Protection Program. This is the $300 billion, billion with a B, program for small businesses, where you go to your local lender and you have very limited documents that you're going to have to do. We tried to streamline it as much as possible. You get this loan. You go to your lender. You get this loan, and if you use the loan for payroll costs, rent, utilities, and mortgage interest, that portion of the loan will be forgiven. You don't have to pay that back. The whole idea of it is to keep folks on payroll, even if your business is not open. All you have to do is maintain payroll. If there's flexibility, if there's legitimate reasons why your employee headcount has dipped, that's built into the program. But the goal is to have folks pay their employees and keep their businesses going over the course of the next 8 weeks, so that we don't, so that the businesses will have workers once all of this passes. I'm going to turn it over to Rob to see if he has anything else to add, and then we're going to be happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, Joe. No, I think you hit on all the top line pieces of the EIDL program and the Paycheck Protection Program. Just fill in a few details. The $350 billion program, these are 100% federally guaranteed loans where, as Joe mentioned, if used under payroll assistance, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities over an 8-week period, it will be forgiven. The interest rate is going to be at 1%, and that's going to have a 2-year maturity. We are receiving information by the minute from both Treasury and SBA. Earlier in the week, they released a framework guideline for lenders and borrowers to start taking a look at it. That was either Monday night or Tuesday. Well, good news. They have revised some of that information and put out guidance last night that has gone to all lenders so that this program could be as close to up and running as possible this morning. And they have met those goals. The information is with the lenders right now. And we know that some lenders are working to get some money out the door. Before we turn it over to questions, we're happy to answer any questions. And if we don't know the answers, we'll be sure to get you the answers. We are stressing that your businesses to start working with their lenders immediately. Again, this large $350 billion Paycheck Protection Program is with lenders. Your borrowers, your businesses will be working directly with lenders, both SBA lenders and non-SBA lenders that have been brought into the program through the help of the Department of Treasury. So we can't stress enough to suggest to borrowers and businesses to start working with their lenders, bankers, credit unions, etc. So with that, I think we covered the top lines, and we're happy to answer any question the best that we can.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was very good information. We're going to transition to Q&A. And first of all, I want to give Nathan Hewitt a shout out. Dealing with this technology can be a little overwhelming, so I appreciate your patience with us. But he's done an incredible job of troubleshooting on the fly. So just wanted to give him that shout out. So hold one moment, and he will facilitate Q&A because we do have several questions that have come through.
Hey, this is Nathan Hewitt. Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Got a lot of questions, obviously, as this is just newly coming out guidance. I'm just going to go through these and have Joe and Rob, the experts, answer some of these to the best of their ability with the information they have in hand. So they keep coming in. So tons of questions for you two. First question I'll lead off with is, how is K1 reported income addressed with the PPP program?
I'll defer to Rob on that one.
Sure. So to begin, the directive from the beginning, and just so everybody has a good understanding, the drafting of this legislation started about 2 to 3 weeks ago. And the directive for everybody was see how many small businesses you can receive that can receive assistance between now and the end of the emergency period. Now, we know that the emergency period has been growing over the last few days and about the last week. So the goal from the beginning was to move as many small businesses as possible into this type of program to save employees. And specifically, this the assistance is going to be at the paycheck level. So we want to make sure those employees can stay on board. With that being said, some of the language that we put into the bill and worked with the Senate, just background on that, the Senate were the main drafters on this legislation, but we did work with them throughout the process. Some of the terms are vague. And the reason for the being vague is so that we can capture as many small businesses as possible. So there are going to be documents that are required, and we are still waiting on specific guidance on some of the documents. As I mentioned, guidance was released last night. All lenders will receive program guides this morning, or I guess it's not this morning, sometime today, which will outline the rules of the road. And that is going to go into the specifics with a lot of the documents. But just for example, I'm going to run through how we've defined payroll costs, sum of payments or compensation with respect to salary, wage, commission, payments cash, tip, or equivalent, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, sick leave, allowances for dismissal or separation, payments required for the provisions of group health care benefits, including insurance premiums, payments for retired benefits, payments for state and local tax assessed. And then there's a lot of details for sole proprietors, independent contractors. And for that specific group, there will be extra information for them on their requirements. So again, we are stressing that any borrowers go directly to their lenders with the documents that we've kind of mentioned, and we will continue to talk about 1099s and K1s, etc. But the guidance is vague, and we're trying to narrow that so that everybody has the best information as possible.
Next question is, if we've already applied for the $10,000 advance, but do not need other loans, what do we do now, and how do we check on that?
Yeah, this is Joe. I've received that question several times today. I have already emailed the folks at SBA. It's my understanding that for the idle loans, there used to be a place on the SBA's website where you can check the status of that loan. I've been told numerous times that that is no longer there, and so I have already inquired with the SBA as to what do folks do to check the status of their idle loans. I do not have an answer back yet, though.
Joe, real quick question. We were starting to lose you a little bit on the coming through the line.
Sure. I'm sorry. Yeah.
There you go. You're good. We caught you, but it sounded like a little bit underwater. You're good now. If you applied for the economic injury disaster loan and you didn't check that $10,000 box, is there any way to recover that? Meaning, kind of go back and change that. I understood that $10,000 would be an immediate advance from the larger loan when it came in, and had no idea that the $10,000 could be approved even if more money were not necessarily approved. So can you more or less change your mind after you've submitted something?
That's a good question. We wanted this to be as flexible as possible. I would think congressional intent would be to the SBA to allow folks to do that, but I'm not sure if that will be addressed in any future guidance. Rob, do you have anything extra on that?
No, I think probably the best point of contact is with SBA directly, the district field offices. If there was changes in law that may go backwards, in the Paycheck Protection Program, we retroactivated back to February 15th. So we've been trying to cover the entire basis and the entire uniforce. So our suggestion would be to contact SBA directly with that change. And we know they're working on it, and we know they're overwhelmed at the moment, but they should be able to give you an update on where the status is of your individual loan is, and if you can access that $10,000 advance. Does that answer the question? Hello.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And
I'm going to keep rolling because they're still coming in. Can a self-employed person apply for SBA loan in unemployment?
No, they have to choose. It can be one or the other, but not both.
Got a good just general question of what's some of the specific documentation folks should be pulling together for their lender with the PPP?
Sure, I'll defer to Rob. I know he's answered this question a couple of times already.
Yeah, and we're actually still waiting some of that the documents also. I'm trying to pull up the list here that I have at our fingertips right now. Let me see here. And this is going to be different between what a sole proprietor, independent contractor, or self-employed would have to be required to present. Let's see here. For those sole proprietors, independent contractors, we're looking at payroll tax filings from the IRS, Forms 1099 miscellaneous, income expenses from any sole proprietor as determined by regulation from the SBA and Treasury. So we're getting this information and we're trying to go through it as quickly as possible. We are waiting on more information on the exact documents. I would like to point out that there are two basic applications that are currently on Treasury's website that will be used and taken into account for the businesses when they go and see their lender. So the best way to answer that question is to go to treasury.gov. At the top, there is a link for assistance for COVID-19 businesses. You will see about 6 or 7 links on that page, and then you'll see the application forms. Again, this is going to be done specifically with your lender, but our suggestion is to take a look at those documents. That is the application, or will be similar to that application that you're going to be filling out. So it'll give you an idea of what you need to have in place prior to getting to your lender. So our suggestion is take a look at those forms and then start talking with your lender.
Next question is, how long is the payroll protection supposed to pay employees? Just 8 weeks? What if we potentially need to stay closed longer?
That's as Rob was saying, the virus keeps moving our cheese. This was just, it started almost a month ago, and so they initially put the end date that this program would be allowable. I shouldn't say they, I should say we put the end date of June 30th. We may have to revisit that depending on how long this crisis lasts. But yes, currently it is just those 8 weeks that would be forgiven. You can continue, the size of the loan isn't just what you need for those forgivable expenses. If you get a larger loan and use it for payroll past those 8 weeks, that you would have to pay that back, but the money will be available to do that.
The PPP program is really geared towards payroll, rent, utilities, and not necessarily working capital, correct? Is it more the economic injury loan that is related to working capital?
Yes, and you can qualify for both as long as you don't use them for the same purpose. You can qualify for an idle loan that can cover your overhead, working capital, things like that, and then you can also qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program, and the forgivable portion of that would be your rent, your utilities, your payroll, and your mortgage interest. So you can do both as long as you don't use them for the same purpose.
I'm looking through the question, just filtering here real quick.
And while you're kind of looking for the next question, another good thing to point out with the EIDL loans, the economic injury disaster loans, there is a refinancing option where you can refinance an EIDL into a PPP. The only requirements there are that you've had to have the EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan, after January 30th, and therefore you'll be able to refinance that into a PPP.
And to tag that, that would be very beneficial because the EIDL loans for businesses are at 3.75%, and the PPP loans are going to be at 1%.
Got a question about that, the exclusion of $100,000 for employees making over $100,000. Is that just the amount over $100,000, or is it the entire amount?
No, it's just for what's over. The way the law is written is it's up to 100,000. So if an employee makes 120,000, the first 100,000 will be forgiven.
Got a question related to the economic injury loans. Someone asked what they can generally be used for, but they noted, are there restrictions on percentages of the loan, somewhat like there are with the PPP?
I don't believe so, but I'll let Rob extrapolate a little bit.
No, there's not. Economic injury disaster loans, EIDL loans, no parameters. You could use it on working capital, inventory, payroll. As Joe mentioned, can't use it for the same thing if you get a PPP, but in general, the EIDL loan, there are no parameters on what you can use it for.
Got a question from a business owner that's not necessarily on payroll. Can they recap the owner's draw?
Could you repeat that question for me? I'm not sure if I understood it.
The person wrote, I'm a business owner that is not on payroll. Can I recap owner's draw? And we may need to get a little more detail for that question.
Well, I think what it is if you're a pass-through entity, you don't necessarily have payroll. You have, I think what he would need to do if he wanted to get a PPP is just show proof to the lender of what he essentially paid himself through W-2s, things like that. Rob, do you have any other?
No, I think you're right. I think that was the question: is how does he, the owner, satisfy the payroll test? And I think Joe mentioned it properly. So.
Got a pretty good scenario here. I own a bar and payroll is low compared to mortgage, insurance, utilities. So the 2.5 times payroll doesn't exactly help me with the 25% left. So if we can get 2.5 times for 2 months, is there any help with that situation? Someone that has a high lower payroll versus other costs.
Yeah, this has come up before, and unfortunately, we didn't dictate to the SBA and Treasury that they say 75% of the PPP has to be used on payroll and 25% on the others. I'm not sure exactly why they did it, but that's the rule of the law, or the rule of the land right now. So that person is definitely not in the best spot, I should say. Rob, do you have any other tips on that?
Yeah, I was just to make sure everybody understands kind of some of the parameters. So in the regulations, so not in the law that we put out and the president signed, we did not put any parameters on the loan amount forgiveness. We said essentially if you use it on payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities, the portion of that loan used on those categories could be forgiven. Now, guidance and regulations that have come out from SBA and Treasury has now said 75% of that loan must go to payroll costs and 25% will go towards the other categories, rent, mortgage interest, and utilities. So we have been receiving a lot of questions on that. Our best guesstimate is that they do want to earmark, the forgiveness to the paycheck piece of it, the employer paycheck piece. Again, those were the parameters. Just wanted to make sure everybody saw that, heard that. I apologize.
As folks are calculating some of the necessary values for the PPP program, should they include benefits such as dental, life insurance provided by the company?
Yes, that is part of what is considered payroll. All of that stuff. So the answer is yes.
I've had a number of questions come in related to checking the status of a loan, and I think you answered that a little bit before, but do you have any ideas or thoughts where that should appear if it does come back online? Will it be on the SBA site? Will it be through their bank, some other site?
Is this in regard to the EIDL loans?
Yeah, we'll say either, please.
Well, the EIDL loans would be on the SBA website. The PPP will not be on the SBA website. That is going to be completely through your lender.
Question is, we've already had to lay off some of our employees. Will we still be eligible to receive the PPP loan? If so, what is the process of getting those employees off of unemployment benefits and back onto payroll?
Okay, this is a tricky one. Yes, they are eligible to get them. All they have to do is hire them back. Now, this is going to be a conundrum for a lot of businesses who have employees that they have already laid off, and then the employee realizes that they can make more money on unemployment than they could at their job, and that's going to have to be a business decision to make. The employee is not allowed to collect unemployment insurance and receive the benefits of the Paycheck Protection Program at the same time, so it is an either or, and that's why it's going to have to be an individual business decision how they approach their employees who are already on unemployment insurance.
Someone's making reference to one of the applications, I'm not sure which. The application used this week asked for cost of goods sold. For service providers like an insurance agency, there's there is no goods. It does not ask for operational expenses.
Rob, do you have any info on that one?
Yeah. Can you just repeat the question? My phone went in and out on that one. Just one more time, please.
This particular person, they referenced an application used this week, asked for cost of goods sold for, say, like an insurance agency. There are no goods. It did not ask for operational expenses.
Sure. So I think what you're describing without knowing more about the scenario is there have been multiple forms that have been released earlier in the week. Those forms that are now online, live on treasury.gov under the there's a red banner at the top where you can click on it, and then there'll be a new landing page for all of the resources. There's 2 application forms. It sounds like there may have been some confusion on some of those documents, and they have been updated. The cost of goods sold is not going into the calculations for your loan amount. And as a reminder, or I'm not sure if we've even gotten to this, but businesses will calculate their loan amount by taking 2.5 times their average monthly payroll of the last year, and that will be the number that you will receive as your loan amount. If that number is above $10 million, you will be capped at $10 million. So that is strictly the only number that will go into your loan amount. And then the calculation on the back end for the loan forgiveness is how much of that loan that you received that was used on loan forgiveness, mortgage interest, I'm sorry, not loan forgiveness, payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, and utility. So I'm wondering if there might have been some confusion or misinformation early on that may have gone towards that, but I think that the calculation is strictly on the front end, 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs. That will be your loan amount, and then the calculation on the back end for forgiveness is the amount used on payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities.
One thing that the discussion is reminding me of, we've got some great partners on the local levels in each of our communities between the small business technology development centers and the small business centers through the community college system. You've got a lot of folks that have a lot of expertise and are helping business owners, just like on the call today, walk through some of the processes to apply for these programs. So I'd encourage you to reach out to those folks if you don't have a relationship already. They've got great experience and are very helpful during times like this. So just a small plug for those folks. The question is, sorry, Greg.
No, I was just going to say, I was just going to echo that the SBDCs, the women's business centers, your local SCORE chapters, those folks should be brought up to speed on this as well, and that is their job to help small businesses deal with all this stuff.
Both of the programs that we've largely talked about this morning, the economic injury and the PPP program, are they open to sole proprietors?
Yes, they are.
I love good short answers. We don't get
I like
much
questions. I like questions that respond with a short answer.
Let's see here. Real quick, this may be a quick yes or no answer as well. I was informed that 2.5 times multiplier actually got reduced to 2.25. Is this true?
Not that I have seen. Rob?
I agree with Joe. I'm not sure about that.
And the guidance that it had that was released last night, it was still 2.5.
That is correct.
I'm gonna assume that that's a rumor, and we can hopefully quell that rumor.
Yeah, and just to kind of talk a little bit about that guidance from last night, they did provide, and this is guidance that we will make sure, again, that everybody can see. It's on treasury.gov under that red banner the COVID banner. They give examples on how to make that calculation for your loan amount, and they do use a 2.5. So perhaps, as Joe mentioned, maybe some misinformation out there. Everybody is moving as quickly as possible. The lenders are moving as quickly as possible, but it is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost.
Can you provide more info regarding independent contractors who receive 1099s and what they are able to apply for, especially if they're not filed as their own business or as the sole proprietor?
Sure. The law and the guidance does address this issue. They are eligible. If you're an employer who utilizes 1099 contracted employees, you would not be allowed to count them as employees, because those independent contractors who file the 1099 miscellaneouses will be able to apply for the PPP, and I believe their start date is next Friday, the 10th.
We mentioned earlier that health insurance benefits are one of those things you could include if the employer provided. What about the FICA employer portion? Can that be included or not?
I'll defer to Rob on that. He's our tax ace as well.
We're still getting information, but as we know, that will most likely not be addressed.
Have someone that mentioned if you take health insurance benefits, someone's salary, that can be added to the 100,000 limit, in essence making the amount over 100,000 in some cases. Is correct. I'm not sure the context there.
Yeah, that is a factual statement, but only the first 100,000 will be forgiven.
And I did want to jump in. The FICA question excluded from the calculation. Federal employment taxes between February 15th and June 30th will be excluded for FICA. So I just wanted to confirm that for everybody.
Filtering through some of the questions, trying my best to understand them, to present them to you all. This one relates to more federal unemployment benefit. And do you happen to know if employees who have reduced hours and have made an unemployment insurance claim can also receive the $600 federal unemployment benefit?
That's a little bit out of our depth. We did not have any input on the unemployment insurance question, other than to say they're not allowed to double dip. They'd have to either decide, get rehired by the business and drop their unemployment, or stay on unemployment. But I think the extra $600, I'm not sure how that divvies up if they were a part-time employee.
Doing our best to answer everybody's questions here. This is a good general question I've seen a lot. Is there a deadline by which you must rehire employees that have already been laid off in order to receive PPP funds?
We gave them a lot of flexibility. Rob, maybe you can help me not make a mess of this answer.
Sure, and maybe it'll be a good idea to kind of walk through the loan forgiveness details. And there is SBA and Treasury have notified us that loan forgiveness guidance will be coming out shortly. But there are a couple qualifiers. So to qualify into the Paycheck Protection Program, you have to be a small business and generally 500 employees or below. It has been extended to 501c3s and 501c19s, which are veterans organizations. That 500 employee below threshold, there's a few exemptions. Businesses within the hospitality and food service industry, businesses that appear on the franchise SBA's franchise directory, so franchisors and franchisees. In those specific cases, both in the food service and hospitality industry and franchises that appear on the franchise directory, the assistance is geared towards the store or location level. So drops down to the store and location level. So that's the big first qualifier is, whether or not you met the size standards for the business. You've also had to have been in business on February 15th, and you've also had to have employees on February 15th. So that enters you into the Paycheck Protection Program. Moving beyond the actual loan into the loan forgiveness piece, you have a few qualifiers. So the first qualifier is if you have maintained payroll continuity. That is essentially saying over the covered period, the 8 weeks, you had to not fired anybody, or if you have, you bring them back onto your payroll. And the way this is going to be, you're going to be looking at this is there's some flexibility there. It's not at the beginning of the 8-week period you had 15 employees, and at the end of the 8-week period you had 14 employees, and then therefore you are disqualified. That is not the case. There's flexibility. There's legitimate reasons for an employer to reduce headcount. Maybe there's a legitimate firing. Maybe somebody passes away. So there's flexibility there. We are encouraging, because this is a Paycheck Protection Program, that the rehires they come back on very quickly. And the reason for that is the amount of loan that will be forgiven is going to be looked at on your salaries and wages that go out the door. So first qualifier, did you maintain payroll continuity? And that's going to be a headcount number. The second is to calculate the actual amount of forgiveness. You're going to, the lender and the borrower is going to look at the amount of salaries and wages that have gone out the door over the payment period. So if you reduce your salaries and wages by 25%, your amount of loan forgiveness will be reduced by that amount. So essentially you have to maintain payroll at 75% salaries and wages. So the rehire up and running quickly so that you may not be reduced or get a deduction on your amount of forgiveness.
Okay, and this is Joe. If we could have maybe one more question. I know Rob and I have to hop on another call here very shortly.
I'm trying to find you a really tough one for the last one.
No, we appreciate talking to everybody, and we'll wait for the final question. But we do encourage folks to get out to their lenders as quickly as possible. Eligibility questions, we would like you to talk with your lender to make sure you're not missing out. Again, the goal was to help and assist as many small businesses as possible over the emergency period. So we love hearing your questions. It helps us to go back to the agencies and say, hey, I think we need some clarification on XYZ. So this has been a great time to speak with everybody, and we'll just wait for the final question here.
I think one that you kind of talked about right there is going directly to your lenders. Is there any guidance? A lot of folks, I think, have already been doing that, and I think they're getting a little bit frustrated of the banks are in the middle at this point, and they're waiting guidance to come down from on high. Is there any idea of when? I realize the program was supposed to probably start today, and some people even potentially are processing some. But is there an idea when that would be more broad-based and it will probably hit all of these local institutions that these folks have banking relationships with?
Sure. I mean, we'd hesitate to venture a guess. All we can say is that everybody is working as quickly as they can. I can't give you a date certain as to when this is all going to be up and running smoothly. I would just, as you said, the banks are kind of in the middle, and they're going to get a little bit frustrated at the federal government for not being quick enough, and then that's going to filter down, to the borrowers. But I would hope that over the next couple of days, things start to smooth out and make it easier on everybody.
Joe and Rob, you all have been great this morning. I know we've thrown a lot of different types of questions at you. There's still a lot more. My thought is to keep collecting these as folks have them. We can redistribute those to the various staff and try to get those answered for you after the fact. We should have, that's why we asked you to identify yourself as best you can on here so we can kind of trace it back to the question and hopefully get you a proper answer. Again, Joe and Rob, I wish we could give you a round of applause. I won't do that from everybody, but thank you so much. I know you're very busy at this time. Great to have some policy experts on here that helped really craft this thing. And obviously to Congressman Mchenry and Congresswoman Foxx and their staff for bringing this all together, bringing the policy experts to the table as well. We appreciate what they're doing at this time in very busy times. And on behalf of chambers and economic development organizations from across the 5th and 10th districts, really appreciate everyone for being on here. Apologize earlier for some of the technical issues. We're in the age of GoToMeeting and Zooms and all these other things, and I think we're all a little bit frustrated by it at times. But appreciate everyone for asking questions. Please continue to do that. We'll keep this open just for a little while just to ensure we capture those. But thank you all very much. Please look to these various organizations in your communities. They each, I'm sure, have great websites and great resource guides, and there's a lot of great information, but there's also a lot of misinformation or inundation of such. So best of luck to you during this time, and hopefully we'll have other opportunities to convene this same group in the future. So have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.